Hello, soul sisters.
That was so subdued for you, Justine.
I know. All right, let's start over. No, I'm kidding.
This is a good example. Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Welcome to your very first day of the Mindful Eating Challenge.
Yay!
Yeah.
So we're sending this out the night before. You might not see it till the next morning. But we wanted to start off kind of talking about like what mindfulness means.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Jen, you didn't tell me that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, for me, I would come from my perspective. Mindfulness for me is being present with myself and practicing equanimity or non-judgment around what I am witnessing. So kind of
So
being
what
the
does
witness.
it not mean?
What does it not mean? So for me, mindfulness doesn't mean categorizing what I'm doing or what's happening as good or bad. So,
but it also doesn't mean trying to stop something. That's what we had been talking about.
You were trying to set me up.
I was
No,
trying.
I was not in any way ready for that.
So when we're talking about mindfulness and we're talking about eating autopilot, a lot of people are going to think, oh, that means I'm going to stop this evening eating and this evening snacking, but that is not necessarily what this is about.
I totally agree, actually, and I think that...
Yeah, because it was what your point.
Did I point that out? Yeah, so I think that for me, when I first started getting into mindful eating, intuitive eating, I was still pretty tangled up in diet mentality, and so I would come into a challenge like this thinking, oh good, this is the solution that's gonna help me not eat, right? It's gonna help me eat less, and although we totally respect and like understand how intense the pressure is out there for women to be pursuing weight loss, the pursuit or approaching this with the hopes or intention of weight loss is going to kind of complicate things for you, because yeah, this 5 days is not about stopping the eating, because we need you to do the thing that we're trying to be mindful around, right? So if the whole point is, hey, let's be mindful around our eating, then you need to eat, right? That's a key part of this challenge.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily changing the behavior, but changing how we feel about it and how we go about it and being more present. And yes, that may change the behavior.
Yeah.
But if anything, like how nice would it be to just not worry about this as much?
Totally. And I talk to clients a lot about that, where I'm like, they're like, oh, so like what got you to like not eat the ice cream at night? And I'm like, oh no, I eat the ice cream at night. I just don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And I move on. It's just not a thing that stays with me, and it doesn't have any like consequences like, oh, I had this and now so tomorrow I need to work out, or tomorrow I need to not have it, or whatever. It's just, I'm just in the moment with it, and it's like, oh, this happened and now it's over, and all right, now we move on.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that brings us to your first goal for the day. We'll call it a goal, and this is going to run throughout your week, regardless of other things we ask you to do.
It is the foundation.
The foundation. We want you to give yourself permission to eat.
Yeah.
That is, and to eat what you want, and how much you want, and when you want it.
Yeah.
So, like we said before, this isn't about control. So, and this may be the first time that you've ever actually like given yourself permission to have.
Yes. Pseudo permission is not the same thing. And I have, I've had conversations with them where like, well, that's the problem, is I'm giving myself permission to eat and I'm eating. And it's like, the thing is that overeating stems from restriction. There's just really, the research is very clear about that. And so, when we say, well, wait a minute, I am good, that's the issue. I really challenge that, because I think a lot of us do go into eating with a lot of judgment, a lot of shoulds, a lot of, oh, I'm having this, but I should be having this other thing, or I'm having this, but I really want this other thing. So being aware of that and really trying to find that 100% permission, which might not happen immediately, but that is your first practice. That's why mindfulness is a practice. It's not a thing that we like get, and have, it ebbs and it flows, and it's different every day. So,
and I'm going to swear a little. So giving yourself permission, and this is kind of what Justine was talking about, giving yourself permission to eat is not the same as the fuck it's. And you've probably known the fuck it's when you're on a diet.
You know it when you see it, that's
and
for sure.
And you get to the end of a month or a Friday and you eat something you're quote unquote not supposed to eat. And that turns into like, well, fuck it, the weekend's ruined.
I'll just start on Monday.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
not a mindful approach to this. So
Right.
this permission to eat is more like you're a little kid and you
Yeah.
want a popsicle. Like, here you go, have this
Yeah.
popsicle. Like, it's for you.
Totally. I love that. And I think that, for me, one thing that's helpful coming from the yoga perspective is the idea of kind of being the witness. And so even if you have those feelings around, judgment or feeling like, oh God, like I feel a little bad eating this, just being able to be there with yourself in that.
Mhm.
And that still happens to me. I'll have something, I'll kind of have like an icky feeling. I'm like, oh, what's that? And it's like this diet mentality that's still with me where I'm like, really, you're gonna have that? Like maybe you should have some of this, and I'm like, oh, interesting, like that's still there, but it's not me, right?
Yeah.
And so that like differentiating between like the authentic kind of voice within and the witness, and then what's like basically like the food police, like this kind of voice that's trying to tell you, to stay in line with basically like dieting rules that you've picked up over however many years,
And to help with this is something that maybe I'm not a big mantra person. I think you do.
I
well
talk
with
to
mantras.
myself all the time.
But if it's helpful to have a mantra for this week, if whether that's like, you can eat this, this is for you, enjoy, whatever. I don't know if you have any other ideas of a mantra. But just something that you say to yourself to just like to be a little more gentle.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, just for my personal practice, I generally start out with that. So I'll say, like I'll walk into the kitchen and just say to myself, like, what would you like? Like, let's find you something that you would like.
You're a guest in your own home and you're just like being a good host.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. For me, perfectionism really reared its ugly head when I started doing a mindful eating and then eventually intuitive eating, because you can't be mindful all the time with your eating. Like, hello, like children, partners. I mean, you're dealing with life, right? So this idea that you're going to be able to like create this perfect environment, like, don't worry about that. That's why it's so important for the foundation to truly just be permission to eat. Permission to eat doesn't have to be perfect circumstances or perfect environment or perfect choices.
And you may forget and then be like, oh yeah, I need to, and that's fine too, because this is all new. But that's why this is the first thing that we're going to focus on and what we're going to focus on throughout the week.
Yeah. And sometimes like the forgetting to eat thing reminds me of like getting to a place where I was able to be like, oh, I forgot to eat. Now I'm very hungry. Oh, look, I'm kind of eating past full and eating way more food than I normally would. Well, that makes sense because I'm super hungry, right? Instead of which, before mindfulness intuitive eating, I would have been like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I control this, right? And it's like,
or in my case, I would have been angry that I allowed myself to get to hunger because I was always desperately trying to avoid reaching hunger.
Yeah. So,
permission to eat. Is granted.
Yes. All right, everybody.
Well, we will see you tomorrow.
This has been great. Bye-bye.